The placement parameters are in the tap parameter box to make sure that you get the duct positioned correctly on the drawing. There are two ways to make sure the duct is positioned correctly. We can either keypad input values in the tap parameter box or use the wheelie mouse to scroll the fitting in position. You can see here I'm rolling up and down to move the fitting left to right. We can also move the fitting up and down. Notice in the side view here we can see that I'm moving the fitting up and down. The top two parameters always move the fitting left to right. The bottom two move it up and down. However, if you would like to just freely click on the drawing and center the tap to a point on the drawing, you can click once, and I'm going to click once now, on the drawing, and when you do that, the crosshairs are now going to dictate where this tap goes. So if I want to center it to the grill, I could just hold the node to the grill, and once I click, that tap will be centered to the grill's neck. However, if I would like to keypad in values, like the distance from the back of the boot to the out joint of the main trunk line, or the distance from the tip of the boot from the in joint to the trunk line, we can do that in our tap parameter box. There are only 4 values at any given time that are represented in the box, but the values will change dependent upon what settings you choose. First, notice that we've got set on fitting by, and we only have 2 choices here, in and out. Notice that when we select out, the values down here change. When we select in, they change back. What this in and out does is control whether or not we're reading parameters from the in joint of the rectangular duct or the out joint of the rectangular duct. Most of the time, I just keep it set on in. Now we've got the tap in and tap out button. Notice when the tap in button is depressed, it says in from in to side, in from out to side, in from top to side, and in from bottom to side. However, when I click on tap out, it switches to out from in to side. Tap in and tap out are dictating the node of the boot tap. Tap in means that we're reading values from the in joints of the tap. The side of the tap is right here, the front side. The center would be here on the in connection, and then the out would be at the heel. However, if we wanted to give distances, let's say from the in joint of the duct to the center out connection of the boot tap, we'd have to switch it to tap out, and instead of using to side, we'd switch it to center. Let's work with tap in and to side. Notice the first choice. It says in from in to side. 42. That is the distance from the in joint of the connector to the side of the in joint of the tap. Into side. That would mean that this value, if we made it 0, you can see that the boot tap is now all the way at the beginning because the in from in to side parameter is 0. If we set in from out to side to 0, it would go in the other direction. In from out to side is the parameter from the heel of the boot in connection and the out connection of the duct. So if we set that to 0, you can see that the boot tap is now on that side. So there's a variety of different ways to place the boot tap down, and dependent upon the information that's given to you on the drawing, you can choose by holding the tap by the in or the out, and then using the center or the side of that tap to read off the proper values. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to come over and we're going to just roll this boot tap so we can see it in both the side view and the plan view. And now we're going to go into the in from top to side parameters. In from top to side is reading the value from the top of the boot and the top of the duct. In other words, if we set it to 0, it's going to be flush with the top of the duct. If we take in from bottom to side and set it to 0, the boot tap's bottom is going to be flush with the bottom of the duct. That would mean that if we made both of these values equal to one another, the distance between the top of the boot and the top of the duct here, and the distance between the bottom of the boot and the bottom of the duct here would be equal, so the tap would be centered. And a little trick to take note of is PractiCAD remembers the last setting you had in your tap parameter box. Therefore, if we set one fitting on the drawing and it's centered, the second we place that one down, the very next fitting we grab, these parameters will equal each other again, and it'll start as a default centered to the side of the duct. So most of the time, if you like to have everything centered or you like to have everything a distance from the bottom of the duct, and these values don't change that often, you really only need to change left to right. And if in fact we don't want to give a value and we're just centering the tap, once again the easiest thing to do is to click on the screen, get control of your tap, point to the direction you want to go. Here we're going to click and center it to this tap, and we click once. Notice that the second we do that, PractiCAD is starting to route. I'm going to put it on P for piece by hitting P spacebar for a minute. Right now it's centered, but it's not routing duct. However, we can hit E spacebar for exact, and then we can route out from the boot tap all the way to the grill. Notice here though that we've got a joint right over the center of the neck of the grill. So instead of using exact, we might want to switch to the smart route. I'm going to hit M spacebar. By doing that, it extends the straights. Just like in other tutorials we extend the straights of elbows, it'll extend the straights of the boot tap and give us full length joints of duct. So here I can hold my corner point of the grill, and when I click, I now have one boot tap and one piece of rectangular duct. That concludes the tutorials on using the tap parameter box and placing down taps.